It was the moment from yesterday's hearing that revealed a lot about today's Democratic Party. To rebut Michael Cohen's continued and fraudulent claims of racism against President Trump, Congressman Mark Meadows invited Trump family friend Lynne Patton to the hearing. Here's how it all went down.
Do you know Lynne Patton?
Yes, I do. I'm responsible for Lynne Patton joining the Trump Organization and the job that she currently holds.
Well, I'm glad you acknowledged that, because you made some very demeaning comments about the president that Ms. Patton doesn't agree with. In fact, it has to do with your claim of racism. She says that as a daughter of a man born in Birmingham, Alabama, that there is no way that she would work for an individual who was racist.
Just to make a note, Mr. Chairman, just because someone has a person of color, a black person working for them, does not mean they aren't racist. The fact that someone would actually use a prop, a black woman, in this chamber, in this committee, is alone racist in itself.
Mr. Chairman, I ask that her words be taken down.
President, I reclaim my time.
Mr. Chairman,
Trump is setting a president.
Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me. Would you like to rephrase that statement, Ms. Tlaib?
Just because someone has a person of color, a black person working for them, does not mean they are racist.
Now, Ms. Tlaib, I want to make sure I understand. You were not intending to call Mr. Meadows a racist, is that right?
No, Mr. Chairman, I do not call Mr. Meadows a racist.
Wow. Well, joining us now is Lynne Patton, who didn't get a chance to respond yesterday, but does tonight.
Thank you,
Lynne,
Laura.
first of all, it's great to see you.
Always great to be here.
How did that moment feel to you?
Well, you know, Laura, for me, the only prop in that room, as Sean Hannity just said, was Michael Cohen for the Democratic Party. I was never there to represent my entire race. I was there to represent one man. One man who, by the way, has done more for the black community than the last probably 3 presidents combined. I mean, not only has he just created an urban council that's funneling $100 billion of capital through opportunity zones into urban and rural communities, but he's also given more money to historically black colleges and universities than the last administration. He's given more money for public housing than the last administration. He's given, you know, he just passed the most comprehensive prison reform bill in 3 decades.
None of it matters, Lynne. None of it matters to the left.
None of it matters.
No, because actual facts and evidence and progress and success is counter-narrative to them. Because their narrative is Trump's a terrible, awful, rotten person, and he's going to tank the economy and cause World War III. None of that's happened, so all they have is racism, 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 Mueller, Cohen, racism, Southern District of New York. That's like their whole thing.
That's
right. Summed it up, and that's their whole thing. Lynne, I wanted you to react to a few comments that were made about your appearance yesterday. This first one on MSNBC. Let's watch.
To bring a black woman out and have her stand there like she was on the auction block. She couldn't talk, she couldn't speak, you couldn't swear her in. And there's this visual, Exhibit A, American people, there's a black person here. And we have a black person who can't tell you what she thinks, will tell you how she feels. And that'll prove that Donald Trump's not a racist.
You're like a slave on the auction block, Lynne? Really?
You know, Laura, it's really actually kind of sad and pathetic. I was so fired up this morning. The only race card that was played in that room were the folks on the House Democrat Committee that basically are taking the word of a self-confessed perjurer and criminally convicted white man over the word and testimony, basically, and experience of a highly educated black woman who rose up through the ranks of one of the most competitive real estate companies in the world to speak before 25 million people in front of the Republican National Convention, and now works for one of the most successful administrations in history. You know, these people tout Me Too, they tout women now, they tout all these things, and yet a black woman stood there and said, Donald Trump is not racist. In fact, he's empowered more women at the Trump Organization than any other company.
But you're a threat to them. Lynne, you're a threat. Your very presence at that hearing, and I think it's great that Congressman Meadows brought you, and that's why it bugs them, because it took them off their narrative, and they hate when that happens.
Well, that's right.
By the way, CNN also came in, and they basically, you went from being a slave on the auction block to being, Lynne, a wedding planner. Let's watch.
Yes.
You're going to pick someone like Lynne Patton, who is basically the wedding planner for Eric Trump, who had no experience whatsoever working at HUD, and that's who you're going to trot out, someone who was like the personal assistant of the family, to say, oh, well, he's not racist?
Your response.
You know, first of all, Laura, it's unfortunate. You're a real journalist. There are so many glorified bloggers posing as journalists these days. If they took the time to not be lazy and Google Eric Trump's real wedding planner, they would see a 2014 article, long before the president even won, that was an interview with the real wedding planner in People magazine. So, you know, these are just people that are just internet parrots. And quite frankly, if I cared what overpaid pundits and internet trolls said, I would have stopped getting out of bed 3 years ago. You know, their opinion means nothing. Basically, you know, like the president, we're just moving forward. You know, again.
But Lynne, the great thing is that you're just I mean, I had the chance to meet you once, I think, a long time ago at Trump Tower. But you're just someone who's just, you're not going to be silenced. You're not going to be cowed. You're not intimidated. And like I do the same thing. Like if you're a conservative woman and you support conservative ideas, you support Trump, you're not a real woman in their eyes.
No, there's no march. There's no march for us, Laura.
No, unacceptable. Lynne, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Well, it wasn't just Lynne Patton, of course, who came under fire, absolutely, for her appearance yesterday.
Republican Congressman Mark Meadows, he brought a special guest, Lynne Patton, who's a Trump administration official, as if she were a live prop, trotting her out in an attempt to prove that this president couldn't possibly be a racist. I have a black friend, prop. A black employee, prop. Come on, y'all.
Come on, y'all.
Well, I mean, listen, we can talk about this all night long, and certainly there's been a lot of headlines today. I think the bottom line is this, is in Congress what we need to do is seek the truth. And the truth is that Michael Cohen was given a 30-minute opening statement by the Democrats that I don't remember. I've been on the Oversight Committee for over 6 years now. There has never been an opening testimony of 30 minutes and then a closing of another 10 minutes. And so, you know, it's really... Do
you think someone helped him with his testimony?
Well, I think Lanny Davis wrote the testimony. When you look at it. It was really a combination of some of Michael Cohen's personal knowledge and then a whole lot of things that have been reported pulled into that. Really designed to try to just damage this president. And we've seen that over and over again. But here's the interesting thing. Jim Jordan and I had put forth a letter today citing 6 ways that Michael Cohen has contradicted himself and perhaps committed perjury. And so we committed that and sent that to the new Attorney General for a criminal referral to have them look at.
What specifically?
Well, you know, when you look at John Solomon's already done some reporting on this. Just the one claim that he never wanted to work at the White House, it's been refuted over and over. It was refuted while we were in the hearing, and now I think John Solomon has between 9 and a dozen people.
But he also refuted collusion, right? So he said a lot of things that were actually, I think, very positive to the president.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
against the narrative of the left. I didn't see him collude. The whole phone call with Donnie Jr. I mean, all of this.
Well,
stuff
the timing of that phone call too, if you look at it when the
So I think Republicans are a bit of it's kind of a bit of a pickle with Cohen because some of the things he said you want to kind of say, see, he said this. On other occasions, well, he's lying about that.
And we can, but here's the other thing is, you know that yesterday was his greatest attempt to do as much damage as he possibly could.
This was payback.
It really was.
Big time payback.
But here's the thing is, you know, he came in and said, I'm a new man and all of that. Well, he ought to tell the Southern District of New York that because they asked him to cooperate and he refused to do that. And so when you look at that, if you read the sentencing guidelines,
working with him, isn't he?
Well, but they put in there that it was very, very strong wording that he is just not cooperating.
Were you hugging Congresswoman Tlaib on the floor of the House?
You know, I went down today. Listen, we're all about being civil. She offered.
She was an outrage. I know you're being her comments to you were outrageous.
Well,
I mean,
but at the same time, listen, we're in a civil society. That's what separates us from all other nations is a civil society. And I've just felt compelled to go down and offer a hand of friendship and say, listen, if there was anything that I did that personally offended you, it didn't come from my heart. She hugged me, and certainly we looked at moving forward to hopefully work.
Well, that's good, because the word racist is thrown around way too casually.
Fortunately for me, I know that I'm not a racist.
Yeah.
You know, if you
but
say...
that's even that, like, that's so defensive. Like, when they call you a racist, I said, no, you're the racist for bringing up race here. Okay, the president's record should stand on its own. Don't go back to, I was driving in Chicago and he said something. I find that all to be.
We all say hurtful things. And so it's more important that we reconcile.
Congressman, I'm glad you had the hug. Kumbaya moment. Good for you. You're the bigger man. Thank you so much for joining us. And Michael Cohen did create that stir on Capitol Hill yesterday. We have more on that with Chris Christie when we come back.